Day 16 of the Diddy trial, and this morning we're getting to hear direct testimony from Bana, which is what her friends called her, Bana. She is the last of the inner circle of Cassie Ventura's friends from the time that she was dating Diddy. At least the last of the names that we've routinely heard during direct testimony from several different witnesses, including Cassie herself. Now, the testimony from Bana is coming on the heels of testimony from an expert witness who was looking to verify the validity of the infamous surveillance video from the Intercontinental Hotel that displayed Diddy throwing Cassie to the ground, kicking her a couple of times, and then trying to drag her down the hall, and some very interesting cross-examination of the defense that raised a lot of eyebrows. I am Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. I'm a New York litigator who's practiced in this very courthouse in the Southern District of New York, and I'm coming here from the Diddy trial trying to give you the legal perspective and background so you get a better understanding as to the opposing approaches of the state and defense, and see how this trial is progressing. If that sort of thing is your deal, I appreciate if you like, share, hit the subscribe, and make sure you hit that bell. Now, we started this morning with the expert witness, and he was trying to establish and correct issues that the defense had raised with this infamous video that has been seen by millions of people before this trial even started, which displays Diddy wearing nothing but a towel and socks, running down the hall of the Intercontinental and into the elevator bank, throwing Cassie to the ground from behind. He grabs the back of her hood, throws her to the ground, and then kicks her a couple of times before trying to drag her down the hall. And we've heard a lot of testimony about this incident. The very first witness who came forward in this trial was the manager, who is actually can be seen later on that surveillance video, who arrived on the scene, and he's the one who actually shot video of the video. And the defense has raised issues saying that it looks as if it's been sped up, and that maybe this raises some sort of issues as to the credibility of the video, perhaps seeking to get the court to toss the video altogether on the basis that it's not an fair and accurate depiction of what happened. But so the state brought in this expert witness trying to establish that it does fairly and accurately depict what happened. During the cross-examination, after he came forward and walked through on direct why it is that the video seems to jump from this spot to that spot. And he explained how it's a motion-sensitive surveillance camera, meaning it's not always going to be operating. It only turns on when it detects that there's some level of motion. And there was talk about ghost images and whether the video skips at certain points. And he actually shared some interesting tidbit saying that the wall parts that are shown there, the parts that don't move, are static, meaning it always looks like that unless something interrupts it. It might not even be capturing what's happening in that very moment, which is very interesting. There was indication that perhaps Diddy threw the vase, which supposedly he had simply knocked over. That was relatively new. And on cross-examination, Tenny Garagos for the defense kept going through the video, like frame by frame, and a lot of people had questions about this. I want to share with you a thought about this from a legal perspective. You know, there's a famous incident that happened in the 1990s with Rodney King, where he was caught on video, a bunch of cops that were kicking him. And the defense strategy in that case was to keep playing the video over and over and over to the jury in order to desensitize them to the horrible imagery that's presented in the video, because the whole world had seen the video. And by having them watch it over and over again, they were hoping to desensitize. And at a certain point I was thinking perhaps that's what the defense is trying to do here. If that was their objective, that's a very questionable objective in my personal opinion, because in the Rodney King incident, they're doing it for weeks, months. They just kept looking at it frame by frame until you become completely numb to it. Here, it's just watching it a few more times over a couple of hours. It doesn't seem like it's going to have that same issue. And if anything, it starts highlighting, like, oh, I didn't realize that his foot made contact there. And I think that it certainly raised a lot of eyebrows in the viewing room that I was in, where people were like, why do they want the jury to keep seeing this? So perhaps they're hopeful that they can get a ruling from the court to have this thing tossed on the lack of its reliability. But that seems like a very It seems like they're throwing a dart out there, and the risk of that dart missing and the ramifications of the jury really deciding that they don't like Diddy because of what they see with their own eyes, him doing to Cassie on that video, seems to be extremely high. So I personally do not agree with the strategy the defense seems to be employing here, but I don't have the red well, and there's a famous phrase: if you don't have the red well, you don't know the case. So I'm not going to pass judgment on their defense strategy, but from what we can see in the jury room, it certainly looks a little bit strange, the approach that the defense took with respect to this particular witness and potentially damaging Diddy on cross more than they actually ended up helping him. Now, the second witness to come forward today is Bana, aka Bana. She is a friend who we've heard a lot of testimony about how Diddy didn't like her hanging out with Cassie, that he thought that they would do drugs together, and that at a certain stage in their relationship, looking around 2016 or so, that we've heard all sorts of indicators that Diddy was not happy about Cassie's drug use, and she testified that she did sometimes provide Cassie with drugs and Cassie would pay for it, including Oxycontin, cocaine, K, X, and an array of drugs. But there's some interesting stories that have come out already this morning that we had never heard before. One incident that Bana relayed is that she was at Cassie's house, which she said she was at frequently. She would frequently sleep there, either on the couch or on the balcony or in Cassie's room. And she said one time there was a pounding on the door, and that Diddy came in and he took a knife and threw it at Cassie. And he said, she thought it came close to Cassie, and the state asked Bana, how did Cassie respond? And she said she picked up the knife and threw it back at him. This is something we had never heard before, but obviously that is displaying certainly a reckless disregard, one would think, for basic safety. The second story we heard about that we had never heard is Bana testified that she was she was on the beach with Cassie, and Diddy was there, and that he came up to her and spoke close to her in her face, and said that I am your devil and I can kill you. And she said that it freaked her out, it terrified her. But she was asked, why did you continue to hang out with Diddy after that? And she said, I don't know. Why did you continue to hang out with Cassie after that? I don't know. Now, her testimony seems like someone who is somewhat affected, in the sense that she talks softly, she talks like someone who has suffered through some trauma. I am not speculating. There's been no talk that trauma has come at the hands of the defendant or from other things in her life, so I'm certainly not speculating about that. But I just wanted to convey to you the feeling that she gives when she's testifying, that her voice sounds very soft. A lot of the questions seem borderline leading, if not really leading, in order to try to elicit her testimony. And her testimony began, the opening statement that she made when she was asked, state your name. Do you know Diddy? Yes. How do you know Diddy? He tried hanging me. He hanged me over the 17th floor of a balcony window. That's how her testimony started. Now, we had heard talk in opening statements that Diddy had dangled a woman off the balcony of a window, and there was some testimony from Cassie and a third party. I'm trying to remember. I think it was Deontay, but I'm not sure. I don't recall precisely, about the Bana on the balcony with Diddy incident. But the Cassie wasn't there when it happened. No one seemed to have been there aside from Bana. So we're going to have to hear from her. And the question is how much credibility she's going to have. She admits to doing a lot of drugs. She admits that she was on cocaine when Diddy purportedly made that threat that he could kill her. So the question of her credibility is something that we certainly should foresee the defense is going to try and attack, because she seems as if she has done a lot of drugs. She's admitted that she's done a lot of drugs, and even on the stand, she seems very soft and almost a little bit lost. So it'll be interesting to see how the defense attacks, but one would expect that they're going to attack the reliability of her memory, given the volume of drugs that she's admitted to having consumed. That's what I've gotten to you so far. I'm really looking forward to seeing the balance of this direct. We'll hear more about the balcony incident and other conflicts between Diddy and Cass, or Diddy and Bana. And I'll break that down for you later today. Till next time, I'm Joe Neerman, aka Good Logic. Please make sure you like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell. I'm out. Godspeed.